So announcements. Thank you to Debbie and to Chelsea for teaching, leading the Sangha last week. We had a wonderful session in our Vipa. Chelsea's the funeral for Chelsea's aunt was this week on Tuesday, I think, and I know it's a tender time for her. I haven't listened to your talks yet, but I will. I look forward to it. And yeah, Sesshin was wonderful, deep, penetrating. Our Vipa Canyon is an extraordinary place. Marianne and I got lost in the LA airport between airplanes with grounded planes because there was a medical, somebody said maybe there was a medical emergency and the airplane had to turn, that was coming to take us from LA to Oakland, had to turn around and take the emergency to Phoenix. And then we were in the airport, lost between Rome's for, I mean, it really does feel that way. It's like, where are we and who are we? And but I realized, was it you? I can't remember. Just reflecting on that, the crew was the same that was on the airplane that attended to the medical emergency. You know, so it's like, oh, the things that people carry for us. You know, they got on, they gave us drinks and our snacks, but whatever happened on that plane, I would just say a little prayer for that person. May that person be well. May their loved ones be well. Sunday is our half-day sitting and Sangha meeting. Please let our registrar Gretchen know. Hopefully you can be there for some part of it, all of it. If you can come in person, please come in person. So we are more or less at the end of the Buddhist teachings on social and communal harmony, but there's no end to it, of course. And I want to bring it forward today. And I've been thinking, oh, what are we going to do next? Because I got lots of ideas. I always have lots of ideas. But I thought at least for the next 2 weeks, I mean, it's interesting. The final chapter is on establishing an equitable society. And it's the Buddhist teachings, and it's not so different than from now. You know, the same human beings are the same old. We just keep doing it one way or another, calling it this or that. And I had the thought, religious nationalism. You know, it's happening in India, Hindu nationalism. It's happening in this country, Christian nationalism. So what is it to have deep spiritual values that inform the way we are as citizens and members of a country that doesn't impose something on somebody else? What is it that lies underneath all of it? So I thought, at least for the next couple of weeks, because he only mentions it briefly in here, that we would turn towards the 4 divine abodes, the Brahma Viharas. We've done that before, but it seems important that we ground in loving kindness, compassion, altruistic or sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And I may forget this, and it is Marianne's going to cover one of the weeks when I'm in Bellingham in a couple of weeks, because Raisela is being the Shuso up there, and I'll go up there to be with her. And I love that the Metta Sutta where you do tonalities. You know, that one that Yvonne Rand does, and I know they do it in Bellingham too, where it's the Metta Sutta is much more of a song. This is what should be anyway, I can't do it. But we'll have to figure it out. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay, but it's really beautiful. It would be fun for us to know it and learn it. So having said all that, I'm just going to do a short review of what we did on Tuesday, and then I'll just repeat the introduction that Bhikkhu Bodhi gives to this chapter called Establishing an Equitable Society. In the last part of this anthology, we move from the intentional community to the natural community, proceeding from the family to the larger society and then to the state. The texts included here reveal the pragmatic astuteness of the Buddha's wisdom. I'm really struck by that. Zen is much more poetic, and I love the poetry of it. But the Buddha is real. I mean, his teachings, his early teachings are very practical. And then they kind of got more codified. I mean, this is the way I understand Theravada. It got more codified, and it kind of lost the poetry and the song and the deep intention of it. And then Mahayana came in to say, you know, guys, this isn't just about rules and laws. This is about living your life and how and interconnection with all beings, which is of course the root of the Buddhist teachings. But we always go a little this way and then we go a little that way. And it's fun that we get to investigate that whole spectrum here now. We can soar with the Lotus Sutra and like, oh my God, what in the world are all these realms? And we can also, the Buddha just says, you know what? Pay attention, live this way because it makes a difference. So his pragmatic astuteness, his ability to address practical issues with uncanny insight and directness. Although he had adopted the life of a samana, a renunciate who stood outside all social institutions from the distance. So he as a monastic and as a someone who had become free from the chains of the world, he was able to kind of well, I like the way he was able to stand outside of society. He wasn't bound by it in the same way, but he didn't abandon it. He turned around and looked, maybe we could say back, and said, oh, there's suffering here. That was the ground of my journey. That was my choice, why I started on this journey and to begin with, and how could I help? So he turned around. From a distance, he looked back into the social institutions of his time and suggested ideals and arrangements to promote the spiritual, psychological, and physical well-being of people still immersed in the confines of the world. He apparently saw the key to a healthy society to lie in the fulfillment of one's responsibilities to others. It's grounded in relationship. We are always in relationship with everything. And then how do we live it and how do we express it? He regarded the social order as a tapestry of overlapping and intersecting relationships, each of which imposed on people duties. Like you have a responsibility. You're a human being connected with the planet and other people. How are you going to live? Duties with respect to those at the other pole of each relationship in which they participated. So relationship, not just with people who are easy and that we like, or who look like us, or who talk like us, or who. I told Evan, my son, a long time ago, that I felt so intimate with his body as his mother that I felt like I could be in a football field and I could smell him, you know? And I think we navigate on those kind of cues all the time. We're just not conscious of it. And then maybe there's visceral responses because people eat certain kinds of food. They smell different than us. And for people who are vegetarians, those of us who eat meat, I mean, there's lots of stories about that, about when Westerners came to Japan, it was like, wow. So, you know, it's like, what's going on here? And watch the self. Watch where it goes towards and watch when it goes away. So social behavior of householders, the Buddha addresses. It was a monastic culture that he was a part of and identified with and was training. And there was the Vinaya and there were lots of rules. And then there were all these householders, lay people who are us. And he very intentionally acknowledged it's not just the monastics, everybody. And what he advised was practicing for the welfare of many, everyone, based in faith, deep faith. What does that mean to you? Or may I love your doggy friend? Virtuous conduct, we would say precepts, generosity, and wisdom. He said, this is a review. I did more about this on Tuesday. He talked about the proper ways of using wealth. We could use a little of that in this culture, huh? He said to use wealth without being tied to it, infatuated by it, and blindly absorbed in it. Like wise, pragmatic wisdom to me. So you cultivate a spiritual dimension in relationship to your stuff. What is this stuff? What is this material world? He advocated no fixed hierarchy of privilege. That the wealth rightly earned, what they earned is used for self-benefit and the benefit of others, and that once you secure your own security for yourself and your family, then your primary job is to perform meritorious deeds that are of service to others. Like just keep extending out, extending out. And it's not like if you have a lot of money, the Brahmins, I mean, it was the Brahmins and there were the untouchables and lots of different names, but if you were a Brahmin, you had it made no matter what. And if you're an untouchable, if you've seen the movie Origin, which I again recommend, and we all know, so you're an untouchable for the rest of your life. He said, caste is a convention. There's no superior moral worth in higher castes. Just because you're rich, just because you have your name on the building or whatever it is, it doesn't make you a better person or more morally or superior. What he said was, your deeds determine your moral worth. Your deeds determine. Are the determination of the most important asset and value that you can bring to this lifetime. So here's, I'm going to read you just a couple of things that he says, because there's whole verses about this. Clearly was important to him, to us. Status is determined by deeds. Here the Buddha is speaking to the young Brahmin, Vaseta. While among these many kinds of beings, their distinctive marks are determined by birth. Among humans, there are no distinctive marks produced by their particular birth. Not by the hairs or the head, not by the ears or by the eyes, not by the mouth or the nose, not by the lips or the brows, not by the neck or the shoulders or the belly or the back or the buttocks or the breasts or the anus or the genitals, not by the hands or the feet. He goes on and on. In human beings with bodies, nothing distinctive is found. And I suppose we could add the color of your skin or your weight or your, 100 million different ways that we judge. And we talked a little bit about that on Thursday. I do not call someone a Brahmin, an upper class meritorious person based on genealogy and maternal origin. He is just a pompous speaker if he is impeded by things. One who owns nothing, who takes nothing. This is the person I call a Brahmin, or a really good human being. One is not a Brahmin by birth, nor by birth a non-Brahmin. By action, one becomes a Brahmin. By action, one becomes a non-Brahmin. One becomes a farmer by action. By action, one becomes a craftsperson. One becomes a merchant by action. By action, one becomes a servant. I'm skipping around. So that is how the wise see action as it really is. Seers of dependent origination, skilled in action and its results. By action, the world goes round. By action, the population goes round. Sentient beings are fastened by action like the linchpin of a moving chariot. By austerity, by the spiritual life, by self-control, by inner taming. This is what makes one a Brahmin. This is supreme Brahmahood. So how you act, actions of body, speech, and mind. Deeds that make you an outcast. I'll just read a few of these. Oh, they didn't mess around. A person who is angry and hostile, an evil denigrator, deficient in view, a hypocrite. You should know that person as an outcast. One here who injures a living being, whether once born or twice born, one who has no kindness towards living beings. One should know that person as an outcast. One who extols themselves and despises others, inferior because of their own conceit. You should know that person as an outcast. A scold, stingy, of evil desires, miserly, a deceiver, one without moral shame or moral dread. One should know that. I'm sorry, this is making me laugh. it's like, just behave yourself. Just try to be a good human being, for goodness sakes. But he obviously had studied human beings and had seen a lot of stuff going around. Okay, so then the state, he talks about the state. And what happens when kings are unrighteous? Or one could say, what happens when leaders are unrighteous? It's very political. When kings are unrighteous, the royal vassals become unrighteous. In other words, people are going to follow somebody who's leading. And when royal vassals are unrighteous, Brahmins and householders become unrighteous. And then he goes on. And if this happens, then that happens. I like this one. When the constellations and the stars proceed off course, day and night proceed off course. The months and fortnights proceed off course. The seasons and years proceed off course. When the seasons and years proceed off course, the winds blow off course and at random. When the winds blow off course and at random, the deities become upset. When the deities are upset, sufficient rain does not fall. When sufficient rain does not fall, the crops ripen irregularly. When people eat crops that ripen irregularly, they become short-lived, ugly, weak, and sickly. Sounds like a certain kind of description of what's happening in climate change. Things are just off balance. And of course, there's this, and then there's this, and this. And then goes on, when kings are righteous. Things are in balance. Sufficient rain falls and the crops ripen in season. People eat crops that ripen in season. They become long-lived, beautiful, strong, and healthy. Buddha really paid attention. Cause and effect. Then he notes that war breeds enmity. Victory breeds enmity. The defeated one sleeps badly. The peaceful one sleeps at ease, having abandoned victory and defeat. The killer begets a killer, one who conquers a conqueror. The abuser begets abuse, the reviler, one who reviles. Thus, by the unfolding of karma, the plunderer is plundered. So, cause and effect. This happens, then that happens. This doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. It's like backward step. Keep bringing it back, unraveling it. Notice it, study it. Because otherwise, we just keep doing the same old thing because it's just easy to keep, it's like I'm going to badmouth that or this or that. But if you pay attention to what happens to your heart and your state of mind and the other people around you. So what does the wheel-turning king or leader depend on? The most fundamental way, you provide lawful protection, shelter, and safety for all. Provide lawful protection, shelter, and safety for all. What is that? And how do we align ourselves for ourselves, our family, and other beings? How do we do that? How does a wheel turning monarch conquer? Do not destroy life. You should not take what has not been given. Don't engage in sexual misconduct. These are the precepts. Should not speak falsehoods. Don't become intoxicated. And you should enjoy your accustomed enjoyments. That's sweet, isn't it? It's like, don't get all uptight. Enjoy what you have. I'll do one more here. I just think it's sort of, I don't know, I just think it's kind of amazing for our time. This is from the chapter of the monarch's duties. He didn't give wealth to the needy, and as a result, poverty became rife. Thus, from not giving of wealth to the needy, poverty became rife. From the growth of poverty, theft increased. From the increase of theft, the use of weapons increased. Whoa. From the increased use of weapons, the taking of life increased. Lying increased, divisive speech increased, and sexual misconduct increased. And on account of this, people's lifespans decreased and their beauty decreased. And what about providing for the welfare of the people? I'll just read the part about the earth, because he talks about different ways of behavior, just as he's been doing. To those in the kingdom who are engaged in cultivating crops and raising cattle, distribute grain and fodder. You know, Bruce read me that there are farmers all over the world are protesting right now, because they're kind of caught in the middle of don't use chemicals, but what's that mean in terms of their sustenance and their livelihood? And but then how do we take care of, I mean, this is complicated. Farmers are on the ground, common people are on the ground trying to figure this out. To those in government service, assign proper wages. To those people being intent on their own occupations, will not harm the kingdom if you give them living wages. The land will be tranquil and not beset by thieves, and the people with joy in their hearts, playing with their children, will dwell in open houses. You be kind and generous to the people next to you and in your neighborhood and in your community. And so the king, who was getting this advice, said, "So be it." And he gave grain and fodder to those engaged in cultivating crops and raising cattle, capital to those in trade, proper living wages to those in government service. Then those people, being intent on their own occupation, did not harm the kingdom. The king's revenues became great, the land was tranquil and not beset by thieves, and the people with joy in their hearts, playing with their children, dwelt in open houses. So I've been reflecting on, and will continue to reflect on for the rest of my life, is we all agree with this, right? And that there's interconnection, and that you are me and I am you, and it's all really lovely. And then, we're also deluded. And I want what I want. And so what is it and how is it that we live this in ways that don't become shoulds, in ways that don't become setting ourselves up against ourselves or other people, because then you just got more religious fundamentalism. is maybe the Buddha starts in here with right view and right understanding, and then goes to anger, and then goes to relationships and disputes. And how do we live and embody harmony, just moment to moment? Because we have to believe there are big acts, and we'll do them when we need to do them and as we can do them, and that small acts of body, speech, and mind matter and ripple across time and space. That is engaged Buddhism fundamentally. So why don't we just get together in groups? You can jump off on any of this